Good morning, beloved. Goodness, can you believe it? I've been somewhat consistent. We've made it to, this is stream number 10. That's a big milestone for me. I don't know that I've ever been able to have 10 consecutive streams in a row. And you know what they say, if you do something long enough, it will ultimately become habit. Now, I see that some of you are in the comments with precision rifle. Now, as you know, that's a personal passion of mine. I'm not an expert at it, but I am certainly an enthusiast, and I have put a little something for you to entertain you in the background, and if you know, you know. Now, I do have a take. We all have opinions, right? Growing up, rifles were a big thing. Elk hunting was our family sport, and the way it was back in the day is that your choice of caliber was directly correlation or a reflection of your masculinity. Right or wrong, but that's just the way it was. So when I left the church and was away from that and all that I'd ever known, and I started getting involved with hunting with some other people, I was quite surprised to see how small their rifles were, and it made me question a few other things. This is all tongue-in-cheek here, but that's kind of the way it was. So unfortunately for me, the bigger the better was the case of the day when I was younger, and most of the guys that we hunted with 300 Win mags. Now that's a decent sized caliber. That was the starting point in our hunting parties. But if you wanted to step it up and if you wanted to really take it to the next level, then you went with a Weatherby Mark V and a 300 Magnum. Now a 300 Weatherby Magnum is even bigger, significantly bigger than a Winchester Magnum because of the Weatherby calibers for the Mark Vs back then were proprietary. There were even guys that were hunting up with 340s, which is getting up into the upper echelons of Africa-style hunting guns. You could always tell our hunting parties because of the big booms down in the canyon. But I bought my first rifle was the 8mm I told you about that was cut down for me when I was a boy when I was at 12. When I was about 16, I jumped up into the baby caliber, which was the 30-06, and that was a good starting caliber for the small boys and women, the 30-06. And then as soon as I could, and I had a job and had a little money in my pocket, I upgraded to the Mark V 300 Weatherby Magnum. And that certainly is a big caliber. I remember seeing back in the day the old Weatherby ads, back when you could get away with false advertisement and stuff. And the rumor had it, what those big rifles were, and this was always bandied around the campground, was that the big Weatherby Magnums were so powerful, if you were just to merely hit a deer, the explosion, the impact would be so tremendous that it would cause the blood to run backwards in the animal and explode its heart, which I can tell you is not true. We lost some animals that were poorly shot, and that's just the way it is. Now, when it comes to precision rifle, now I've moved on from this and realized that bigger is not always better, especially putting a large caliber like that in the hands of a new shooter or a boy is very counterproductive. My grandfather on my dad's side, which I was never very close to, he didn't really like children all that much, and he died when I was quite young. I remember my first experience with a handgun. He thought it would be fun to put in the hands of a small child a .44 Magnum revolver. And of course, I shot the thing, and you can imagine that really frightened me, and almost, it hurt me a little bit. I was slightly injured from it. And that's a very irresponsible thing to do. And I carried that burden for years of being frightened of large caliber firearms, or any firearms to really, and I had a real problem with flinching because of that. Finally, to finally get over that with hunting, because it was really affecting me, I had to sit down with that I think I started with the 30-06, that 30-06, and shoot and retrain myself and calm myself down so that I wasn't afraid of the thing, afraid of the recoil. So if you have small children, that is a very, very wicked thing to do, to put them into that environment. Now, as we know, as I said, bigger is not always better. Now that I have, again, I am not the expert. I am an enthusiast. I've had a fair amount of training of long-range precision. I have some experience with that. I am proficient to 1,500 meters for a man-sized target. And what I decided on was, it really came down to the 308 or the 6.5 Creedmoor. Now the 308 was very enticing, and that's a great caliber to have because it's ubiquitous. It's there's a lot of ammunition out there. There's a lot of science, a lot of materials, for your dope that's already been done. Calibers worked out, everything. There's nothing new under the sun there. And it's a really good way to step into it, and it definitely effective. 1,500, it's pushing it. Some guys could do it, but it's kind of pushing it. One thing that I found that was really, really interesting was the first time that I was able to shoot out to 1,500 meters in a controlled environment with good instructors and, in a tier one type of environment. I shot my 6.5. One thing that was very interesting was I was the only shooter there of 6 of us that had that caliber. Everyone else was shooting the 308s. Now, I showed up at Thunder Ranch. When I showed up, Clint Smith was not impressed. He's an old military guy, and I mean, he had the dope worked out for the 308s. He'd been teaching it for years and years and years. He knows it backwards and forward. He had it so dialed out that when the shooters arrived, he just passed out paper dope automatically for them. Now, it wasn't perfect. It was a place to start, because guys show up with different barrel lengths and different loads and such, but it'll get you in the general vicinity, right? When he saw, and I'm not going to tell you what he called, what he referred to my 6.5 as it wouldn't be family friendly, but it was, he was not impressed. And there was no dope book for me. I was on my own. So, one thing I did have, though, was I had this little beauty right here. This right here is a Kestrel with applied ballistics. This is a very sophisticated weather computer that basically will do all of the hard work for you, all of the math, for those of you who are public schooled will appreciate that, and it is extremely, extremely effective. To give you an idea how effective it was, so we were shooting on the range. Again, I'm the only one with the 6.5, and we're walking out. We're starting at 100. Now we're at 300. Now we're at 500. Now we're at 750, 1,200, right? That's what we're doing. Well, what I noticed was at about the 500 or 600 meter range, when everyone is calling out their dope, meaning how much clicking you're doing for elevation, with, as you're going out, you're clicking the turrets on your scope you've seen on the movies, how they click them, you adjust these, and these are kept track of. Or you should know, at specific ranges, how many clicks. Maybe at 500, you're 18 clicks. Maybe at 1,000, you're 20, whatever that may be. What I did notice with the Creedmoor was that dudes with a 308 were clicking a whole lot more than I was when we got out to that 500-600 meter targets, right? So it's flatter shooting, certainly flatter shooting. I'll close with this. Interesting thing with the Kestrel, now I didn't have a dope book, and something very, very strange happened on the range. Dudes started missing, and everyone started missing. What is going on? These guys have been shooting for a day here, and everyone's very competent. They know what they're doing. Why are people missing? What's going on? Well, an atmospheric pressure. Something changed. It was a dramatic weather event that changed, and the atmospheric pressure either lowered or it raised. I don't remember the details, but it threw off the dope. And those of you who know, you do temperature readings, you elevation, you have to take the weather, and that very much affects how the bullet travels, right? Well, I was working off of this Kestrel, which was giving me firing solutions in real time and compensated for that weather. Now, it wasn't a problem for the guys with the 308s. Once we realized what was going on and that a low pressure had moved in, which started to radically affect bullet impact, once they figured that out and made the correction, everyone was back on the page again. But I found that very, very interesting that this right here compensated for that, and I didn't even know the difference. So a very valuable tool if you want to get into the system. And some guys just don't want to really, you don't have time to geek out on all that stuff and learn all the math. If you want it like a cheat code, this is it. Now, I wouldn't rely upon this by yourself. And these are legit, man. I mean, guys that are doing this for a living are using these and counting on these. They are quite excellent. But I also run a manual dope book right alongside. So every time you shoot, every time you're at that, take advantage of that to write these down, because you might find yourself in a particular elevation or temperature that might be you always have to record these things. So if this were to fail or break or the battery goes dead, whatever, right, with all electronics, you know how it is, you do have that to rely upon. But I'm sorry, I get sucked into it. I love that stuff. Let's jump into the super chats. We have a super chat from Luke. Oh, thank you, Luke. I'm not a smart man. You even color coded it for me. I will get this someday. We have a super chat from Darbo. Shout out to you, Darbo. And Darbo writes, will you ever get back to your old style to videos? Feels like you have really fallen off the educational videos and now target sharing your beliefs with success. Yeah, I'll do whatever I want to do and whatever I feel like doing, combined with what is working for the algorithm. Now, there's two things that are happening here. There's what I want to do, and then there's what I have to do. You know, the servant is not, or say, no, what is it? The borrower is slave to the lender. So what has happened of late is that the algorithm has changed with YouTube, and they do not promote the traditional long-form content that I've made in the past. And to be honest with you, that is my favorite content to make. I've always enjoyed that. That's what I built the channel on. But it really rips your guts out when you put 12, 14 hours into something, and I tell you, to do a highly produced video with a project where you start and finish something, it's a lot of work, a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and that's time away from my family as well. But I'm happy to do it. I've always done it, and that's not a problem. But when you put your heart and soul into something like that, and it does not get any, or just gets a few views, or just a fraction of what they used to get, it takes the wind out of your sails, and it just doesn't really, it's not very much fun to do that. And then when you see that you're losing subscribers, that your channel is falling behind, and everything is just starting to fall apart, well, it takes away the incentive. It's my opinion that YouTube was getting their lunch eaten by TikTok, and they made a pivot, and they have basically forced us as creators to do two things. Live stream and do shorts. If you don't do those two things, then your channel is not going to grow. And say what you may, if you've been doing this for 12, 13 years, it is important to me that we're moving onward and upward. That what we're doing here is reaching people. It's getting distributed. I'm just not interested in doing something that people aren't going to see, or that's not going to be shared with a new audience. We want to grow. We want to get bigger. I make content to be viewed. So I have to play by the rules. YouTube sets the rules, and currently that's what has to be done: live streaming and shorts. Now, I understand your frustration, but I'm frustrated with you as well for not seeing and appreciating the effort that goes into what I'm doing. Even though I'm doing shorts, I'm doing them the best that I can. I put a lot of time and effort into them. I try to put something up that's entertaining, that's visually nice to look at, that you might walk away and learn something. So I'm doing what I have to do. I'm operating inside of the framework that has been given me. So if and when it gets back to the way it was, we will drop the shorts. Those aren't my favorite thing to do, or that won't be the priority. But for now, that's just the way it is. I have to play by the rules. So it's not a personal choice, really. We have a new member, Jamie. Shout out to you, Jamie. We had a really nice members-only stream. We have a small group last Sabbath. Mrs. W joined us, and you will have access to those. We're going to try to work those in more often. But shout out to you, and enjoy your new member's badge. We have a super chat from Joby Diagnalt. Shout out to you, Joby, who says, you should try the 17 HMR for gophers. I've never had, let me finish here. Muskrat, beaver, trapper, avoid outdoorsman, recommend this caliber next to 22. Yeah, it does. So I love that caliber. Unfortunately, I don't have one. Back, well, goodness, this was probably 12 years ago or so. Was back, I guess 2 houses back, I had built a 5,000-foot shop where I ran my Jeep parts business, and I had a really wonderful man who worked for me. His name was Tom. He was a retired dock worker. He was smart and got into a good company and retired early and was looking for something to do. And I put an ad up, and he answered it, and it was just an absolute blessing. We worked together for many years, and he was a great man, and I miss him terribly. I bought him a 17 for Christmas as a Christmas bonus one time, and And so I heard back, he absolutely loved it. 17 is a flat shooting, neat little rifle. I wish I had one, a little bolt action. That's a good one. I agree. I don't have one, but I do love them. I am familiar with them, and he loved it. That's what he did, is he liked to go shoot prairie dog, I think prairie dog and stuff. He said it was just wicked, like a little laser beam, I think is how he described it. We have a super chat. Goodness, a very generous super chat from Mr. Morris. Shout out to you, Mr. Morris. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. He gives us a proverb. The Proverbs, you should read a proverb a day, gentlemen. Every day a proverb. Get in the Proverbs. Get the good book out. Put it on your nightstand. Put it in your dresser, wherever, and just cogitate on that. Meditate on that. Just one a day. If you do nothing else, there's good advice in that. One of my favorites. I don't have it memorized. I should have it memorized, but I'll give you the gist of it. Is that I think this was written by King David, and he talks about being a man and walking along, about wisdom, and he's walking along, and he looks at his neighbor, and he says, "I beheld and I looked, and I saw his stone fence was in poor repair and falling down." I'll give it the modern equivalent today. I saw that the paint was peeling on his house and the roof was leaking. I saw that the grass was unkept and the gutters were all full of grass. Basically, he looked at someone who didn't run their life very well, who didn't appreciate the possessions that God had given them, did not take care of all of the things in his life. He said, "I looked upon that and I received instruction." You know, that's very important. You look upon a man, you can look upon how he keeps himself. I was going to say what he wears. What he wears, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it does have to be well kept and clean and ironed if necessary, if appropriate. But you look upon that man and you can tell. When I used to be in charge of picking general contractors or hiring general contractors when I was working with my dad or working as a construction superintendent, that was the first thing that I wanted to do. I wouldn't wait for a guy to park somewhere and then walk over to me. You do form opinions from what he wears and how he keeps himself. That's important. But look at his car. Look at his truck. That's all you need to do. Just go and peek in there and look and see. Is there McDonald's all over the place? Is it dirty? Is it just? And again, it doesn't have to be new. I'd actually prefer to see a guy that drove a truck that was 10, 20 years old, that was well kept, clean, tidy, neat, his tools organized, like he cares. How he treats his truck is how he's going to treat your job. It's not hard to figure out. I mean, it's very easy. Same thing with wildland firefighting, and I've never known this not to be an accurate way to judge the character of a man or woman. All you had to do is look at their boots. A lot of the old timers, that's what they would say. And they'd say, all I need to know about a man is to look at his boots. Is he wearing whites? Is he wearing nicks? Is she have good laces in there? Are they greased? Are they taken care of? Are they just been left to dry out and no one cared? No one even thought about it? You take a person like that won't, as important as boots are in a wildland firefighting ground, that doesn't have the wherewithal or just the intelligence or just doesn't even care about taking care of their feet, they're just not of much value to you. A person like that would immediately be put in a position where they're going to cause the least amount of trouble as possible. But you take a person, this is regardless of it wouldn't matter, male, female, old, young, I wouldn't discriminate. But more important, I would take an 18-year-old girl that was taking care of her boots over a guy that was just slovenly and didn't and had more experience. It's important. You can teach people how to do the job, but just having self-respect and caring about yourself and caring about the work you do and trying to follow the good book and which says whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. You can't teach that. That's either you have it or you don't. I'm ranting. Thank you, Mr. Morris. Goodness. The proverb, we haven't even read Mr. Morris's proverb. The proverb Mr. Morris gives us here. He who has an ear, let him hear now. A good name is preferable to great riches. Favor is better than silver and gold. The rich and the poor meet together. Is the maker, Yah, or is the is the maker of them all. Thank you. May God continue to bless you and your families. Yeah, that. There you go, right there. We're on the same page. I think we were going to the same thing. A good name is more important than these things. What is your reputation worth? Reputation, honor, integrity, chastity, faithfulness. These are words that many think are from a bygone era that just don't have much sway, or don't have as much emphasis or importance as they did back in the day. But God changes not. Those are just as important now, if not more important now, than they were in the past. And that's why we need to maintain those connections. You know, it's the things that worked in the past, they still work today. And as a side note, and this is something that I've been somewhat convicted on, and I don't really know, I need to look into this. Mr. Morris, you'll see right there, he has looks like he's spelled the name of Yah, Jehovah, in the Jewish text. I have heard, and there's some people that I know think that it's a sign of disrespect to actually spell out God's name. And I see a lot of people don't even capitalize it or capitalize Jesus, you know, and that's something that is even too far to go for me. But I wonder if they know something that I don't. And that's a good reminder to see that. That is, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. There could be something to that. You know, we're very casual with God sometimes, and don't respect Him like we ought to. We don't you just kind of take it for granted. And a lot of it is the terrible teachings of the Western church that we grew up with. You know, what do we see? We see the pictures of Jesus, right? What do we see Him with a lamb, and we see Him with the golden locks and the peaceful face, and we see Him with the little children, and everything is always peaceful and serene. Yet those of us who know our Bible and know what to expect in the second coming realize that He is not anyone to be trifled with, and nor did the men inside the perimeter of the temple. They realized what His power was too when He came in there and overturned the money changers' tables and the gambling tables. The good book tells us that He was so fearful that they all fled for their lives. So we have this misconception that gentle Jesus, meek and mild, and let's not confuse meekness with weakness. Those are two very different things. And if you want to see what He will be like in His second coming, then go look in the Revelation, the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible. But that might be a lesson to me, and I appreciate that. You know, I don't know what the downside would be. I just don't know what's appropriate with that. I'll look into that. I'll definitely look into that. We have a new member, Joby. Shout out to you, Joby. Thank you for supporting us, and enjoy your new member's badge, which is the awesome Overton's Green 940, his actual knife. How cool is that? We have a super chat from Ipo. Ipo writes, getting an AR kit and curious if you would recommend getting a 16 or a 20 inch. It depends. Now, if it's your first one, I would not go with a 20. A 20 is, that really really takes advantage of that cartridge. However, it's a very unwieldy thing. It's very long. Now, if you already have a 16 that's set up, you know, a 16 is a good balance. 14 and a half is better, perfect. But if you were just going to have one, I would stick with the 16. It's going to be a lot easier it's going to be a lot more portable, mobile. You know, I've really followed Clint Smith's doctrine on his urban rifle. He wrote a book on this, and he makes the argument that the AR-15 is the perfect home defense. And he goes in there, you know, I'm not going to argue it with you in penetration, and I know all that stuff, I get it. He makes a very good argument that is the best way to go. And the 16-inch is just ubiquitous, and it's just the standard. That's going to work really good with most of your BDCs. If you buy an optic that's got built-in bullet drop compensators, most of those are going to be tailored for either 14.5 or 16. They're going to be really good for that. And that would be, I would go with that. Now, if you find you've already built one, and you have that in your safe, and you want to go with a second one, I think it would make more sense to go one way or the other. I would either go down to an 11.5, 10.3 if you want. A 10.3 with a law folder on it is very compact and very nice to conceal. Any normal backpack that's a decent sized book bag, that can be fed in there. You can fit it in bags that most people would not ever think that there would ever be a long gun in there. So I would probably, depending on what you want to do, but I would probably go with the 10.3 over the 20. Now, if I had a 10.3 and a 16, then I'd maybe look at 18 or a 20. That would be my opinion. But again, this is just my opinion. I'm an enthusiast. I'm not an expert. But I have spent a lot of time looking into this. Goodness, Mr. Ben LePage. Shout out to you, Ben, our favorite Australian, our favorite Aussie. He's been with us for 3 years. Shout out to you, Ben. There's not a video that goes by that I think Ben doesn't count on. I've come to recognize his avatar, your avatar, and it's always good to see you. Always good to see you. Thank you. Ben writes, "Hi Cody, do you recommend the 6.5 Creedmoor? I only have a 17 HMR and want all-arounder. You should check out Mark and Sam after work for a long range. Mark and Sam. I have not heard of Mark and Sam. A 17 HMR over the 6.5. Well, those are two very different things. You know, if we're talking about the 17, that's a good little varmint rifle. Not to say you couldn't do other things with it, but it's pretty light, even lighter than a 22. But where your 6.5 is going to be, you know, that's going to be more of a military style, or you know, that's going to, you could hunt with that. A little bit on the light side for elk, you know, a lot of big North American game, but not out of the question. Certainly not out of the question. 308 be a little bit better if you wanted to have something. If you're just going to have one that you could go and you could take down a deer. You can take down elk. You know, my neighbor, our old neighbor, it really comes down to shot placement too, and what your competency level is. You get into those bigger calibers, the 300 Win Mags, the 338s, of course, you know, the 340 Weatherby Magnums, you know, those, you can get away with, you know, we used to aim for the neck, and if it was far away, we'd aim for the shoulder. You know, because that's where all the organs on. And what those organs are, those bigger rifles, you know, you can maybe not have perfect shot placement and still get your animal. Where the 6.5 or your 270s, you know, the 260s, those are traditionally out west have been deer hunting rifles, starter rifles, and a little on the smaller side. But the only man that I know that bagged more elk than my granddad was my neighbor Henry, and he had, I think he had 2 or 3 more than my granddad did, and he hunted with nothing other than a 270 Winchester, and he was, you know, known to be one of the best shots around, and that was the only gun that that's the only one he had, and it's all he hunted with, and he was deadly with it. Be weary of a man who with only one rifle, and he definitely met that category. But thank you, Ben. It's good to see you here. We have new members, John Sanchez, shout out to you, and Dustin Knifen. Shout out to both of you. Congratulations. Thank you for your support. We'll see you over on the next members live stream. We have a super chat from Joby, another super chat and new member, who says, do you use the Mark III pumps in the U.S.? What is a Mark III? Oh yeah. I was thinking of shotgun. Yes, we do. What he's talking about is they're incredible pumps. I've used them extensively. I've used them a lot. I've always been kind of keeping my eye open for them. A Mark III pump was developed probably sometime in the 50s or 60s by the U.S. Forest Service, and it is a very compact, super, super high head, portable, 2-stroke pump. I have had the misfortune of spending multiple days attached to these things in charge of putting hose lays up. They are very, very noisy. They're known for being extremely noisy and extremely temperamental. Now, they're not particularly temperamental if you're not a Philistine and trying to reinvent the wheel and not following the procedure and flooding the thing and then causing those of us who know how to run them misery for the rest of the day. But that's what you get. That's what you get with the Forest Service and with fire. You get new people rotating in, and you can't expect them to know everything. Unfortunately, there's just not the old seasoned hands that there used to be that can help out, and so it is the blind leading the blind, unfortunately. What these pumps are used for and what they're super effective for is lifting water tremendous heights. They can lift water, they can push up, I think, over 200 PSI, maybe more. I forget. I'd have to get my IRPG. I could. It's been so long. I used to know all those calculations off the top of my head, but I know how to reference them. So what they do is, let's say that you have a fire up on top of a ridge. Let's say it's 1,000 feet up there, but there's no water up there. And the only way to get water up there is to either pack it on your back in bladder bags or get the amazing Mark pumps. So what they'll do is we'll order up pump kits, and the pump kit comes with the pump, a little, of course, safety Sally and environmental Sally. You have the little drip tray in case it were to leak into the stream. There's all this foolishness. But it's a whole pump assembly with the red can and all that. And this pump we know will lift, let's say it'll lift 250 feet, 300 feet, whatever it is. You can put this thing in the creek, which is an unlimited supply of water. So you put the intake in the creek, you get the pump going, and you pump up to where as much as you can. And it depends on elevation and grade and how much hose lay and friction loss. There's a whole bunch to this, but let's say, just for argument's sake, that you can lift it 250 feet. Well, so what do you do now? You still have to go another 750. You lift it at 250 feet. So what we do is we put up the big pumpkins, big inflatable tanks, or sometimes metal tanks if you can get it, but the inflatables can be dropped in by aircraft. It's just imagine like your little Walmart swimming pool that pumps up, right? It's like that, but a heavy-duty industrial version of it. So we pump up to that, and that's filling from the stream, an unlimited supply. We set up another mark, and we do a relay system. And you can put them in line. You can even put them in line so they boost each other. But one way that we typically did that was really good was having, so we'd stagger multiple tanks and then multiple pumps, and with 4 pumps or 3 pumps, we would be able to deliver water, an unlimited supply of water for to get to the fire up on the top. As well as I've used them for structure protection. We've put them on fires. If a home had a stream or a pond or a creek or a swimming pool, a really good solid water supply, but it was too dangerous for us to stay, we would set a trigger point. Like, okay, when the fire reaches right here, we're leaving, whatever that may be, or whenever something happens. We see multiple tree torching, whatever. As the weather changes, the fire moves from 10 to 2. 10 to 2 is when it's the hottest. Usually 10 o'clock, that's when things start happening, and that's when the fire moves, and that's when you got to be really active. So we've had those pumps where we've dumped them into a creek, turned them on, put a sprinkler system around, and just gave them a big supply of gas, 5 gallons of gas, started that thing up and said, Godspeed to you, we're out of here, and the little things ran and saved houses. Incredible. Yeah, if anyone is looking for a Christmas idea for me, I would love to have a Mark III pump. Just go ahead and you can just send that as a Christmas card. Just write your name on it, and I'll give you the address, and just send that on over. And 2 would be even better. I love the Mark III pumps. I don't love listening to them. They're super noisy, but they are very effective. We have a super chat from Tyler. Another super chat from Tyler. Shout out to you, Tyler. He says, do you worry about gun registration and the government coming for them? Thank you for their knowledge. Nope, I don't. I don't care. They can do whatever they want to. I've already decided in my mind what I'm going to do and what bridge is going to be a bridge too far, as well as my neighbors, as well as my local sheriff, and we have a plan. So I'm not going to lose a bit of sleep over it. I don't care. I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and you should do the same, if you get my drift. Of course, you should always follow the laws. Thank you, Tyler. We have a super chat from Ward Cartwright. Shout out to you, Ward. Ward writes, have an old Indian chief fire axe in great shape. Is a fire axe a practical tool for a homestead, or for less stuff, higher quality sell, for Grand Force more traditional axe? So a fire axe is specifically designed for one thing, and that is breaching and entering. It's very heavy. You know, your normal, like a good American felling axe is going to be in about the 4-pound range. That's going to be really, really nice. Even the double bit, the 4-pound double bit is about perfect for most guys. 3.5, 4 pound. Now, if you're a super Chad and you do firewood for a living and you've built yourself up, you know, you can swing a 5.5 pound axe. guys did back in the day. Even guys back in the day, like some of the Sager chemicals that I have that are really long, those are heavier axes and they're longer than traditional axes, and the guys would even run 48-inch handles on them, 4-foot handles on them to get the reach because the trees were so big. But for normal guys, that 3.5, 4 pound is a good size. A fire axe is a miserable thing to try to cut down a tree with. It's very, most of them, I haven't seen all of them, it's got a real wide taper in it because it needs to be durable. We used to use them in the fire service to chop through the sides of houses, chop through wiring, chop through metal doors. I mean, they're formidable. You put a big 200-pound dude on one of those, he can do some serious damage. And they have a pick on the back, which is good for nothing other than just gaining entry or breaking windows or breaking glass. So I would say if you could, I don't know how much value it has, look them up and see, if you could get $100 out of it, shine it up and apply that towards a good American felling axe, I would do that immediately. I have them around here. I would never grab one to use for anything other than just breaching or forced entry. But it's good for that. It's very good for that. There is not a house in existence in this county that I couldn't be in seconds with a fire axe. But better than that, you want to know what the ultimate breaching tool is? Hold on. I call this the universal key. Now you're going to notice that this one's brand new. Whenever I bring brand new tools out, Mama, we're running a show here, Whenever I bring brand new tools out, I get all sorts of people give me a hard time. It's like, well, he doesn't even use these things. He just buys them and shares them. Trust me, I've used these things. I started with these when I had my excavating company, and they are very, very handy. This is a pinch point bar, and it's about, I don't know what this thing weighs. It weighs a lot. It's got a 60 on it, but I don't know what that means. A pinch point bar has a taper on it, a square end, about 4 foot tall. Is that 4 foot tall? Oh, a little over, maybe 4.5 feet tall, and it's heavy. You can gain an entrance into anything with this. There isn't hardly a commercial door. There isn't barred windows that you can't pry off of. You can lift. I can change the tire with this and a bunch of cribbing or chunks of firewood. I can lift a car up and change a tire. You'll get into any vehicle accidents. There's nothing that's going to stop a man with this. A professional homeowner with proper motivation will get into whatever he needs to get into with one of these. And you should have one of these on hand. They are very, very handy. If you ever don't go buy a new one. If you come across one at a garage sale, estate sale, have it. And really good if you live in a place that has hard soil or clay. I know some of you guys down south have some of that hard pan clay that's really hard to dig in, or ice, anything like that. You can break rocks with these. There's going to be, things are going to be changing, gentlemen. The access to all of the cool tools and the chipping hammers and even just having the money to hire someone to come out and dig stuff for you, that's going to not be an option for a lot of people in the near future. And we're going to be going back to the way my granddad did things. My granddad, how it works is when cities were being built, when he built his first house in World War II, after World War II, he put in a septic system with a septic tank, what's very common for most houses. As cities expand, they put sewer treatment in, they bring sewer mains in, and then you're obligated to connect to these things. Well, Granddad, when that sewer line came through in the early 60s, people had a lot less then. He didn't have money, or I don't think there were backhoes. If you wanted to dig your sewer, you dug it by hand, and him and his brother came over, and they started digging, and they had to dig down 12 feet. That's how deep the sewer was laid through the street. And they started digging, and they dug that up by hand. And it's in an area where there's just notorious for boulders. It's where I grew up, and I know I've done a lot of excavating up there. And whenever you bid a job, you always have what they call a rock clause. So you may bid the job for $10,000, but it's like, unless, unless we start hitting rock, and then it's going to be time and material. So him and his brother, with one of these and a sledgehammer, hand dug at 12 feet. If you think that's a small job, you go dig a trench about 70 feet long that starts 2 foot deep at the house and then tapers down to a 12-foot hole through hard rocky ground, and tell me how easy that is. It is not, but it can be done, and it was done, and our grandfathers did that. My granddad built his house. He didn't have enough money to do a basement. It was just a small, modest house. And he knew, so he just, the bare minimum. They put the foundation up, him and his brother, they both built houses, and they did what they could do. Well, after work, once he got that house built, he went to work every evening. He went down there and started digging his basement, and he dug the basement by hand with pick and shovel. And he told me that there were boulders down there, and I saw it because that was the house I grew up in, and it was never finished. Parts of it remained dirt, but he needed a workspace. He needed extra shop. And he would go down there. My Nana said, your granddad would be down there after work with a sledgehammer and a pinch point bar. And if he couldn't pry the rocks out, he would pulverize them and swing that sledgehammer and break them into pieces small enough to put in a 5-gallon bucket and haul them outside. That's what men did. That may be a surprise to you, but that's what they did, and that's what you can do too, and that's what you will be doing. So you better have the tools. You better have the tools. Goodness, I'm ranting. We have a new member, Robert. Shout out to you, Robert. Robert Cabana, shout out to you. Man, thank you. I'm having all these new members. Man, wouldn't it be nice? I have a dream. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get to the point where we could just shut off all of the comments and shut off all of the channel to all of the Philistines and just have a members-only channel? Man, wouldn't that be awesome? Dare to dream. Dare to dream. Spartan 219. Shout out to you, Spartan. Spartan's back in my good graces. He says, hi, brother. What kind of cologne do you wear, if any? Well, my cologne is Ballistol and gasoline. Those are the two. Usually I smell like gasoline because if ever I have to pick up a can or I come within 18 inches of anything, any sort of a receptacle with gas in it, it will be on me. So if you were to ask Mrs. W what cologne I wear, it would be oil and gas, the stinky variety. I do have some cologne. Man, this is getting personal. It's De Balm. I like that one. I don't wear it very often, just like for Christmas or once in a while if we really dress up. I'll splash a little bit on. Actually, the Sweet Loaf loves it. I think it's called DA Bomb. It's in a little bottle that looks like a hand grenade. It smells pretty good. But I put it on probably 3 times since the baby's in the last couple of years or so, but she loves it. So when I put it on, she wants it on too. So she comes in my closet. So what I do is okay, get ready to rotisserate, and I spray it up in the air, and as it comes down, we spin around and we get it all over us, and that's how we do it. In case you wanted to know. But I like that one. But I haven't checked them all out. I'm not a big scent person. Actually, I'm hyper sensitive to scents. Mrs. W, I have a 0 scent policy in the house. Anything that she uses, any sort of a cleaner or detergent or deodorant or anything in our house, I'm really particular about it. I cannot stand any synthetic smells. Like those people that have those air fresheners. Goodness, my mom used to do that. Oh, we're going to spray this toxic chemical all over our house. It's going to be in the carpet. It's going to be in our clothing. It's going to be circulating in the HVAC. It's just going to be in here forever. Who knows what's in it, but that's an air purifier. If something stinks in your house, maybe you need to root out the stink rather than trying to masquerade it with poison. I never understood that. My Nana was the same way. She would buy those hateful little things with the scent packages, and you plug in the wall with the fan. I would walk in there, and just the horrible stink and smell of those things. Like Mrs. W accidentally, the this is funny. The other day, I came out of my closet like with my hair on fire. Like, what have you done? I smelled like detergent smell, like just like a Tide, just normal stuff that you put on clothing. Well, it was my own fault. I didn't know this, but she had set aside some of this OxyClean, I think is what it was. She says that for things that are really, really bad, that this is the only one that will work, that these greeny ones that I have, these scent-free natural ones that I demand, don't clean as well. And for things that like are just necessary, that she sets that aside and washes them separately and then washes the tub out. So because I just can't stand the smell of it. Well, she was gone. And I reached up there and grabbed one of those things, or took a scoop of it, not knowing, because that's not my POR, and put it in there. And then when I didn't realize that when I put it on, it was just, I couldn't even stand it. I couldn't get it off. I was I'll tell you, so I was bad before with these fake smells. Since I've been doing the Wim Hof thing, and I'm coming up on 2 weeks with the cold shower now, my sense of smell has increased dramatically. Like I'm in food, the taste of food has increased dramatically. Like I've really been enjoying food. Like I forgot how good food tastes. It's awakened this in me. And my sense of smell is exceedingly keen now, way keener than it was before. When I came back from Halfway last weekend, this is a true story. I was Baker City. I was coming, it was at Baker City about 7 a.m. I left Halfway early, and I was hungry, so I stopped at a truck stop for breakfast. And when I was in there pretty early, there was only a couple people, and I slid into a booth and ordered my food. There was not the booth behind me, but another booth. So there was an empty booth between us. Two guys came in, like a father and son, and sat down in this booth. The smell of the fabric, whatever that they used, the detergent on their clothes, I know that smell was so overpowering to me, wafting over from probably 12 feet away. I almost couldn't stand it. Had I not already had my food been served, I would have moved to a different table, because it was so offensive to me, that smell. My sense of smell has become so keen from this. And another thing I'll tell you, I haven't played video games since COVID. Jack and I used to play a little bit, and I haven't played them for a long time. Well, we were going through some stuff, and we found Jack's old Nintendo Switch, and it had Mario Kart on there. Mario Kart is a great game, and so the Sweet Loaf and I, it was a Sabbath afternoon, and we were just chilling and hanging out. And I said, let's boot up the old Switch, and I'll teach you how to play Mario Kart. That's a fun game to play. So I was, and it was in the morning. It was in the morning. We were playing this, and so I had played it for an hour or so with her, and then we shut it down. Mrs. W was making breakfast, and I went and took my cold shower. I go through the Wim Hof breathing thing. It takes me about 45 minutes. Did my cold shower, come out just like my hair on fire. I feel like I told Mrs. W when I came out on Sabbath, I said, man, I feel like I'm 20. I literally feel like I'm 20. It's just incredible. I went from playing that game, Mario Kart, after that, and we jumped back in after breakfast and played for another hour. My concentration and focus and my ability to perceive and to react, my reaction time was greatly enhanced. It was noticeable. I was noticing things about the game. I was noticing details that I'd never noticed before. It was really, really miraculous. Very, very interesting. This is changing my body in ways that it's hard to perceive and understand. Mrs. W even told me, I think it was Saturday or Sunday. It's like you smell different than you used to. So I don't know, man. I don't begin to understand it, but it's miraculous. I feel great. I feel really great. Maybe that was Sunday. I might be confused. Whatever it was Saturday or Sunday, but it was amazing. We have a super chat from Robert Kavanaugh. Shout out to you, Robert. And Robert writes, a new member, welcome. Right, so how do you feel about piston versus DI ARs? I personally prefer it due to the benefits around Gaulding, carbon buildup, bolt carrier group receiver. Well, this is a very controversial topic. What he's talking about is DI, direct impingement, DI versus piston. Eugene Stoner developed the AR as it's a gas blowback system. So one issue with that, or if you don't look after it, is that the gas, there's a little port in the top of the barrel, and that's siphoned off, some of that pressure siphoned off and ran backwards through a tube that mates up with the top of the BCG, and that pushes that back. That blows that back. Well, all of the carbon and buildup, that blows that right into the bolt area, and it gets dirty in there. It gets really dirty, and there's a lot of carbon. It's not a problem. It works really well if you keep it clean and you understand it. You know, I mean, I take care of my firearms. I understand how they work. You know, when I clean it, I pull the bolt out, you know, and I have the little special scraper, and I scrape all that stuff off. I understand it, and I keep it really lubricated, so it's just dripping. You just can't put enough oil in those things. It's fine. That's what they like. The nice thing about DI is it's simple, it's ubiquitous, you're going to be able to interchange parts with everything that's out there. There's nothing proprietary. For the most part, if you're dealing with high quality, you know, if you're Daniel Defense, Knights, Lewis Machine and Tool, you know, pick your brand. Those are my brands, obviously. You'll be able to interchange, well, not with Knights so much, or LMT. Daniel Defense, there we go. But it's lighter weight, it's ubiquitous, it's simple, it works. It's been proven it's worked for a long time, long time. DI is more like your AK, and instead of the gas, you have a metal rod that's blowing back there. Some benefits to that. Adjustable gas blocks. You know, you can run if you're running different loads or you're running really crappy Wolf ammunition, you can change the pressure on how hard that's kicking the bolt back, which is very nice. And you don't have all the dirt and the problems with that. You don't have gas. They're so interchangeable, you could go either way. You know, you can swap up barrels and stuff. So I think it's cool. You know, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but just even if it is better because it's so exotic, and it's proprietary parts, that's a no-go for me, because I need everything for the war band. My group of men that we've got together that are work together and, you know, kind of on the same page, our inner circle, has decided to have everything be the same, so that if I needed to pull a BCG or throw me this or a part or swap an upper with a lower, it's all going to match up. It's all going to be the same. So for that reason alone, I don't like it. Now, would I take a 416? Would I trade? If someone were to give me a crate of 416s, H&K 416s for the warband, you bet I'd use them. You better believe I'd use them, and I would throw out all the DIs. So it depends. It depends. If you're going to go out there and be Rambo and an army of one, then do what works for you. But if you think you might be needing to work with other men and part share, you know, you might want to consider that. Not everyone's going to be down with that. And there's a lot of controversy. To come out and say DI is better, or that's just, you can't go there. You just can't go there. They're both good. They're both fine. Goodness, we have a $100 super chat from Mr. Morris. Shout out to you, Mr. Morris. That is exceedingly generous. These help, gentlemen. This is help. We have a lot of expenses. I'm never asking for money from anyone. If anyone gives, it's out of their own heart. I've told God, I said, we have this project that we're working on. We want to have a place where people can come, where we can have a center. It's going to cost money. All this stuff helps. We're doing this all out of pocket. You know, 90% of it's going to come out of our own pocket, and we're happy to do it. But all of this helps, and we really appreciate that. I cannot emphasize that enough. Mr. Morris writes, the Father is leading me and has used me to network with others of faith. I am in the same state, and am thankful to Yah that you have forgiven me via my last. I am Torah observant. With your permission, I'd like to bring a copy of the scriptures to your home. Don't come to my house. If you want to contact me, you can reach out through Overton. I'll be happy to, if you have something that's important that applies to what we're doing here, and you can get past my gatekeepers, I would be happy to speak with you. But to show up to someone's house like that, that's not something you should do. Please don't do that. Not to say that that's not an option, you know, for in the future. As I said, if everything clicks and everything works, and if the plans all go as looking, we could be, 12 to 18 months, this could be a reality. But contact Overton. He'll vet you a little bit. He's my right hand, and then if that's something that, if that's God's will, it'll happen. But we have to, I hope you understand, we have to take precautions around here as well. But goodness, that's I very much appreciate that. And there's a lot of Christians getting back into Torah observant, meaning what he's basically talking about. And I haven't got there yet, and I don't know if I will get there. But I don't know that I won't. What he's talking about is that there's a lot of Christians saying that we've lost our way, that we still have an obligation to be keeping, a big portion of it is keeping the feasts of the old days, from the Old Testament, of unleavened bread and Passover and these things that our Jewish friends keep, right? Well, the other half says that no, these things were nailed to the cross, that the old law was done away with, that Christ crucified and resurrection, that was the fulfilling of these things. Those were all things that pointed to him. The sacrifices in the Temple of Solomon, the sacrifices in the desert, in the tabernacle, all of those were a foretelling or a foreshadowing of the Messiah. And a lot of people believe that the Messiah fulfilled those things and that we're no longer under those obligations. Now, I can't say what side I fall on that, because if I look at it objectively, even the early church still kept those feasts and those festivals. And that was post-resurrection. So an argument could be made that these are something that maybe we should look at. I don't know about that. I haven't been convicted on that. I just can't say. I'd hate to be on the wrong side. And it might be, and I don't know if you could say, well, just to cover our bases, maybe we should. What's the downside? What do you have to lose by keeping these feasts? What a wonderful celebration. Are they not the things that point to the salvation that comes through Jesus anyway? And is it bad to go to do more? I don't know. I just don't know about that. Paul tells us, let every man be convinced in his own mind. And that's important. If you've come to that conclusion, if you've come to that understanding, and you believe that that's a salvation issue for you and that's what God wants you to do, then by all means you need to do that. But be very careful about projecting that upon other people, because maybe we haven't got there yet. Maybe we're on the path there. That analogy, it's tired, but it's so apropos, is that, the road to God, the road back to the kingdom is like a ladder. And there's some people high up on rungs, and there's some people that have just stepped on. They've got one foot still on the ground, right? It doesn't mean that they're not on the path. And if there's a man up above that's dropping stones or oil and feathers and down to try to cause a stumbling or difficulty for those that are climbing the ladder that are not up to his level yet, then he would be cast off himself. That's not being done in love. Paul said, let every man be convinced in his own mind. Do it yourself. If that's what your conviction is, you need to follow that, lead by example, and if and when it's our time to come to that understanding, and if God shows us that is something that he wants us to do, then we'll react to that. But just remember to do it lovingly, and don't be putting undue burdens upon people. If someone's just coming to the knowledge of the Scripture, you need to keep it simple. Paul says you need to give them the milk of the Word, not solid food. He says, yes, for us who understand, we need the solid food. We're adults, we can handle these things. But don't lay these heavy burdens and all these obligations on new believers or baby Christians that are just fledgling and just getting started. That's not done out of love. And you will be guilty. That would be a great sin if you discourage someone that's just getting started by placing heavy burdens upon them. So I understand that. I know what you mean. I have a lot of people that have sent me books about this truth, about the Messianic Christians and the importance of these things. And I don't mean to stomp on you, Mr. Morris, but I understand the enthusiasm you have, that you have found this truth. Just temper it. See it through, practice it yourself, pray for folks, and if we come to that realization, we will do it. And That's the way we need to do it. That's the loving way to do it. Thank you for your generosity, though. It's not lost on us. We have a super chat from our friend Tony Bologna. Shout out to you and 1 month member. He upgraded to a G19 Gen 5. Yeah, very good, very good. That's the way to go. That's where it's at. The 19X is my personal favorite, but I also have a 19 and a Gen 3, which is not as good as the Gen 5 with it's got the hateful finger grips on it, but it'll get it done. It'll get it done. Thank you, Tony, and congratulations, man. That's a fun thing to get a new G19. That's a big day. I remember distinctly every one I purchased. It was a great day. We have a super chat from DJINN. Shout out to you, DJ. He says, "Sir, I have a question. I am a conservative RV adventurer, and I am trapped in California currently due to business. Where should I go next to find a comfortable place to live?" Oh, trapped in California. Well, if you're living in an RV, if it were me, I would follow the weather. It would be weather dependent. There is nothing nicer in the wintertime than the Southwest, the deserts. I spent a winter in Prim, Nevada. I was building a store there, and I'd never spent time in the desert before. And oh goodness, the deserts in the evening time, and to be able to sit outside maybe just have a light sweater on, and the colors of the desert. I'd head down to the Southwest. You're not limited. You don't have to be up here in the cold, miserable rain and the dripping and all of that stuff. And the expense. It's expensive to heat an RV. You're burning tons of propane. That rain puts a bunch of wear and tear on your stuff. I'd go down there. I'd head down there, go up in the high mountains around in Arizona. That's pretty nice down there. And then in the summertime, I would head up to the Pacific Northwest, come up and see Crater Lake, go up and tour the Olympic National Forests. If you have the means, go out west to the western side of Glacier, go up the Flathead River up there. Goodness, that's beautiful up there. That's what I would do. Yeah, it's pretty nice to be able to be mobile like that and move around. Yeah, you get out of California, get down there, go up and it surprised me how high the mountains are up there. I think is it Arizona? What's that big town? I don't remember. It's nice down there. That's where I'd go. Shout out to you, Overton. Thank you very much. Overton says, keep in mind you can have a lot of fun shooting long range with a 22 or 17 as well. That long range is just 300 yards. You will get better fast. Yeah, he makes a really good point. Most people could never hit a target at 300 yards, to be honest with you. Even guys that have like super skookum tactical setups, like behind me. That's been my experience. Unless you have been taught or grew up hunting and understand what long range shooting is. I was shooting long range with hunting rifles, when I was 15, 16. I would say the average shot for us for elk in Hell's Canyon was 400 to 500 yards, 600 yards. That was common. I hunted with a 300 Weatherby Magnum with a 3-9. My granddad was the best shot of any man I've ever known, and he hunted with a Remington 7mm Magnum that he bought in 1960 when they first came out, like the first Model 700. I don't know what that must have been. I'm guessing around 63, which I have my safe right over there. And he hunted with a 4-power Redfield. And I watched him shoot mule deer in excess of 900 yards on the move, 900 yards with a 4-power scope. I saw it happen. I saw him do it, and he did it routinely. Not that particular shot. That was one of the greatest ones. But he didn't miss. There was no missing with him. If it was in his sights and he had a good rest, it was, as he put it, it was meat in the freezer. So, and Overton's absolutely right. And 22 is the most fun rifle there is to shoot. No question about it. It is. And 300 yards is no joke. Most people can't do that. I've done it before. I know how hard it is and what's involved in it. And you got to be squared away. You have to have, like the craftsmanship and attention to detail that go into that 700 behind me, from the jewel trigger to the Macmillan A3 hand-laid fiberglass stock to the proof carbon barrel to the boring and the blueprinting and the Badger ordnance, bottom metal, Mark 8 scope, front focal plane. I mean, particular ammunition, loads, you shoot the same ammunition. There's a lot that goes into it. You don't just sit down and shoot 1,500 meters without having put your work in and know what you're doing, unless you're using someone else's rifle that's already done it. It's no joke. It's not a given by any means. And the 17 and the 22, like you said, at 300 yards, that's an accomplishment. Yep, I agree. Martin Kohler, shout out to you, our newest member. Welcome and enjoy your new member's badge. You can thank Overton for that. Overton, that little beautiful green 940, which is the best EDC knife, or let's not say the best, the official EDC knife of the professional homeowner is his actual blade. Shout out to you, Overton. We have a super chat from Miles David, who writes, hey there, thank you for all you do. What denim jacket is that you're wearing? This denim jacket is a 21-ounce indigo dyed Japanese denim made by Ironheart of Japan. It is their heaviest. It is it is a take of the original, a very close representation of the original Levi trucker jacket, but made the way that they would have made them in the 50s and 60s. The stuff Levi makes now is not high quality. So interesting, are we going to get into Japanese denim here? Just quickly, just give you an overview. I'm heavy into Japanese denim. That's my whole wardrobe, that's all I wear. I like it because it is the way denim, or what they would have called dungarees back in the 40s and 50s, was made when it was made with quality in the United States. How the Japanese got into denim was post-World War II. There were a lot of servicemen that were over there, stationed in Japan for the rebuilding, and family members would send them 501s, Levi's. Levi's were popular. The jeans were really popular. Well, the Japanese really took to those and really liked it. They were in high demand. And the Japanese servicemen would take these jeans in and have them altered or hemmed and all of that. And so the Japanese started to acquire these and manufacture them themselves. There are small niche companies like Ironheart that has purchased and found and reconditioned the original looms, the way things were made, and they go back and they do it the way it was done. Like the blue and the indigo, denim should be dyed with pure indigo. That's the proper way to do it. And it's dyed by hand. The man who dyed this jacket, his hands are blue for 2 weeks after the process. He actually dyes the threads. And it's very, very fascinating. I love the history of it. I love the quality of it. I like the fact that the folks that are building these jackets and building the pants are being paid a proper wage, that they're craftsmen, that they're made as the best that they can be made, and they're made the way that they should be made. They're made to last. And if you buy one of these, if you pay $350 for an Ironheart jacket, it's going to be a jacket you'll have the rest of your life, and you'll most likely pass it down to your kids. You're going to enjoy wearing it. So I could talk on this for hours. It's a passion of mine. I'm very much into it. We have a super chat from Stubby. And new member, shout out to you, Stubby. Welcome. See you on the members only chat. He says, Cody, I love the channel. I nabbed a Trail Boss for a budget general use axe. Can you recommend a decent splitting axe that won't break the bank? Yeah, they're getting harder to find, but if you can buy a Husqvarna splitting axe, they're machine forged, but they're forged on the old machines. They're properly forged. They're forged the same way that a Grand Force Brooks is forged, or they were 5 years ago. I don't know if anything's changed. And they are excellent. They're basically what you're getting is a Grand Force Brooks for half price. They're not going to come quite as sharp, but you can do that. I've got tons of videos on that. You can do that yourself with a file and a stone and make it just as nice as anything that comes from the Elites. The handles are not quite as nice, but they're nice enough. And for half the price, they're really good. I would look at one of those. Also, if you're looking for a good US manufacturer, and I have used a lot of the tools from Council Tools. Council Tools, again, I haven't looked at them for a couple years, but Council Tools still makes USA made tools. And you can usually get into their axes, and they have multiple grades. And the grades, you can buy a lower grade, or you can buy their top of the line, which is the velvet cut. Now the velvet cut, if memory serves, is the same as the lower one, just nicer finish. They, a man or a woman put time on it, hand finished it. They did the work for you. Maybe a little bit more polish on it, but it doesn't necessarily affect the tool itself. It's nothing that you can't do at home, and it isn't a delight to do at home. So Council Tools makes a good tool. They're heavily used in wildland firefighting and heavily used in structural firefighting. I've seen them at multiple departments I've been at, and I've never seen one with a loose head. And that's saying something. So I would look at Husqvarna, and Council Tools for those. We have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is the hateful Fiskars. Now the hateful Fiskars, like the XX75 or whatever that big monster that they have, that is a good splitter. Let's be honest. I mean, don't get it twisted that it's not going to be a good tool, and at a great price. I mean, what can you buy one for? $65, $75? Maybe they're more now. It's not going to be as nice to use. It's going to have a plastic handle on it, but it is going to be tough. It's going to last a long, long time. And if you don't like to take care of things, or you don't have time to take care of things, and you leave the thing outside, it's not going to be the end of the world. So we have to address it. They are effective, and they do work. There's guys that split wood professionally, and they swing them. So it wouldn't be my choice. The wood handle is superior. It's much nicer to use. Do you want to hold on to oil, or do you want to hold on to something that's natural, that has a nice snap to it, and that you enjoy working with? Because splitting wood is hard work, and you have some crappy old piece of junk with a handle full of sun check varnish that is so rough and nasty that you have to wear gloves with it. It's hard to work with gloves. It takes extra strength to hold on to wood with gloves, especially if they don't fit right. It's rare to find good gloves. Most of the gloves you have are not very good, and they get wet and they shrink, and you have to hold on to it tighter, and you just need to toughen up a little bit. Get out there, get some calluses on your hands, get a good wood handle. You'll just enjoy it. It just gets better over time. Do it with the boiled linseed oil. Would you buy a new one? Every day for a week, every week for a month, every month for a year, and then annually. That's how you do it. That's how you do your boiled linseed oil. And then you'll get a beautiful patinaed handle that will darken, that will be smooth to your hand, that you'll enjoy using. It just makes the whole experience enjoyable. It's like working with nice tools versus crummy tools. AVE said it perfectly. When trying to covering the should I buy Snap-on tools? The debate rages on forever and ever. One side says absolutely they're worth paying four prices for because they're just better. The other side says no, you're a moron for buying them. I can get something just as good for half price, whatever, right? He summed it up perfectly. When you're down in the bottom of a mine, knee deep in miner piss, having the worst day of your life, freezing to death, trying to fix some broken piece of equipment, and you reach down and you grab that 82 Snap-on ratchet, he says, at least you have that. And it's true. I mean, I've been standing on my head in places where the job was work and shade tree and out in the gravel and things like that, and you reach over and you grab that 82 Snap-on ratchet, and you see that, and it just brings a little bit of joy to your life. It just makes things better. So you can't put a price on that, gentlemen. You just can't. You don't need to have a full set of Snap-on tools, but at least get yourself our 80-tooth ratchet, a hard handle. Miles Davis, thank you. Boy, you're awfully generous. Sure appreciate that. Really appreciate your faithfulness and generosity, Miles. We have a super chat from Gary Klein. Shout out to you, Gary. And Gary writes, team up with Steven Crowder. Build members only. I can't get with Steven Crowder. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to get into that. But I can't get with neocons. I mean, if you still got people out there that are Republican, Democrat, and if we could just get our guy in, it'll make the difference. I mean, come on now. Professional homeowners have moved on from that about a year ago or two. I don't know. Maybe he's fighting the good fight. You know, the way he conducted himself over that last thing with the what's the name of the Overton? What's the name of that media company that just offered him the $50 million deal that he backed out of? What is that? Anyway, the way he handled that was it was not honorable, and he portrayed it as if someone was trying to screw him or rip him off. He recorded conversations of a trusted friend that he had a lot of relationship with, unknown, and didn't tell him, and then played it out there to try to make him look bad, or to make Stephen look like he's a freedom fighter for the cause. And all it did was make Stephen look like a piece of garbage and breaking the confidence of a friend and burning a bridge. He's not someone, in my opinion, that I would hold up in high regards as someone fighting for the cause. I think you need to look into that a little bit. I wouldn't be involved with him in anything. We have a super chat from Corey Gardner, new member. Our newest member, our newest member. Shout out to you, Corey. Welcome. Hope to see you over on the member stream. We sure appreciate that. And Tim Caldwell, he's been with us for 2 years. Shout out to you, Tim. Tim says, brother, haven't used a pitch bar, but opened many doors with a Halligan bar. Yeah, Halligan. Halligan is a quintessential firefighting tool, excellent tool. I've got one of those around here somewhere. Thank you for the daily, makes living in Florida tolerable. Living in Florida is rough. I lived there. I got to experience the 4 seasons, which are not 4 seasons. It's hot and then super hot. I couldn't think of an expletive that would be appropriate. Yes, Florida. Yeah, that's rough. Halligan bar, what he's talking about is Halligan bar is something good to have too. It's about half the length of this, and it's got a fork on the end, and then a series of couple spikes like this. And yeah, if you want to gain entry into a commercial building, commercial door, Halligan bar, that's the way to go. And a Halligan bar is a lot easier to transport. You're going to be able to keep a Halligan bar in the toolbox of your truck. These are a bit unwieldy, unless you have like a big service truck. No one's packing around a pinch point bar. But Halligan's good. Yep. Go get a Halligan. If you want a end of time universal key or zombie apocalypse universal key, go on eBay and get yourself a Halligan. There's even collapsible. I've even seen collapsible versions. I would avoid that. Those are not as strong. We have a super chat from Peter Svensson. I'm guessing that you are of Scandinavian descent. Shout out to Scandinavia, Mrs. W. We represent, of course. Thank you for your generosity. We sure appreciate that. And from Mr. Morris. Goodness, $100 from Mr. Morris. My apologies for the disconnect. I just wanted to send you a copy of the scriptures. I hope you forgive me if you thought I wanted to come to your house. I simply wanted to reach out and maybe link up later according to, if I took that wrong, I apologize to you, 100%. I have to be hyper careful about those sort of things. We've had some problems in the past with that, and that's something that I do want to discourage. I would be honored to receive that if that's what your intent was. Just get with Overton. He can field that for me, and we'll make that happen. I'm open. As I said before, the thing about moving forward from this time forward, and I encourage you guys to kind of take the same mindset, is that let's not be dogmatic about who God is, who His people are, and where His teachers, prophets, priests, where they may come from. I've been thinking of late. A lot of people think in the Pharisees, the leaders of the Jewish people back in Christ's time. Their whole job was they spent all day long searching the scriptures. They teach the little ones, they would even memorize the entire books, and they were looking for the coming of the Messiah. And they had no doubt in their mind that the Messiah would come through them, that would show up there or be born into one of the prominent families or whatever, and be part of the Sanhedrin or part of the Sadducees or the Pharisees. But God never works that way. He never sends his prophets or teachers or people from the establishment. And what's the establishment today? Like, if you thought, what is establishment Christian church? What is that today? Is that the mega churches? Is that the Olstein crowd? If you think that God's going to rise up his prophet or teachers from that segment of the population, he could do anything he wants to, but I find that highly unlikely. Look at examples. A good portion of the people, John the Baptist was in prison, in and out of prison multiple times. Paul. My mind goes blank, but John served a 12-year sentence on the Isle of Patmos, where he wrote his gospel, in prison. If you were to look, say, back today, and for people looking for the coming of the Messiah or a prophet coming from God, and someone were to say, well, he's on the island of Patmos, he's serving a 12-year sentence for being a criminal. That's who God's going to use to change the world. What do you think people would have said in those days? They would have laughed you. They would have scorned you, right? That's the way he does it. God seems to love to take the weakest, the least in society, in our population, and do his work through that. Why does he do that? There's a story. I'm not going to get into the stories, but there's a universal truth. If you've went through hardship, if you've been forgiven a lot, if you have fallen down, failed, and had people help you, and pulled yourself out and experienced love and help, you have an ability, a reservoir of compassion that someone who's never been down in the gutters, they just can't sympathize. If you've been on the streets, had a needle in your arm, been a heroin addict, have been in that environment and got yourself out of that through God's mercy, your ability to be appreciative for what you have and to be sympathetic for that cause is so much greater than someone who's never been down there, that's maybe born into privilege, that never had really got into anything, that never was really that bad, but never really that good. And God understands that. He understands that he can do people on that level, on lower levels that come from nothing, are usually respond to the gospel a lot better because they have sympathy. They know what it's like, and they have a great appreciation for what he's done for them. So what I'm saying is that let's get away from our dogmas, thinking that someone's going to come out of a seminary or a popular church. They're going to come from places that we don't expect. They might even come from religions that we didn't even expect. Now, we're not compromising our standards here. We have the 66. That is our framework. That's our foundation. That's the rock that we build our faith on. But let's not be so dogmatic and stick to traditions that we hadn't really thought out that may be wrong. And let's remember and be open to things that new insights that might be coming to us. Because God is raising up people that are coming from places that you didn't know, that I didn't know. And that's how the work is going to get finished, in my opinion. Let's sit on the fence. Let's look. Let's listen. Let's taste it. Taste the food. Let's compare it, contrast it. Is it in parallel with the scriptures? Is it against scriptures? We can discard it or we can keep it. So we may be missing out on opportunities or insights or even salvation because we stick to our dogmas that we've always done, and just because we've always done it doesn't mean it's always right. And guard yourself. Be really careful if you're older, like 50, 60. The older we get, the less pliable we become, the more entrenched we get, the more we stick to our ways, and we just become stubborn and just unteachable. You can't teach an old dog new trick. People say these things because they're true. That's why true creativity rarely comes from people that are older. I struggle with that. I think about that a lot. This is a creative, what we're doing here. Being a YouTuber is creative work. And it's constantly changing. People's likes and desires, what the algorithm promotes, what people's tastes are, it changes. There's channels that started when I started that have long since died because they couldn't adapt. They couldn't change. They couldn't accept new ideas. They just like, well, it's always worked. If I just keep trying it harder, it will continue to work, and it doesn't work that way. I guard against, I know I'm older, and I know I'm going to be less open to new ideas, and I'm going to be more set in my ways, but I constantly fight against that, and I don't want to be afraid of trying new things. I don't want to be afraid of something that it may not work, I may fail, and people might think I'm a fool. And I'm reminded of that in the comments all the time. I wish you would do things the way you used to do. How come you don't do this anymore? I can't. I'm not the person that I was 10 years ago. The world's not the world it was 10 years ago. I can't idly sit by doing axe videos, crosscut saw videos, the same old thing. Yeah, it might work. There might be a small segment that still enjoy that can't get enough of that. But the world is changing, and I'm going to sit by doing axe videos while the world is burning and people are being lost and people's souls are at risk. You know, I just can't do that. I'm sorry that it's not what you want, but I can only do what God moves me to do. You know, whether I should follow what you say or respond to what God says, you judge. You know, I can do nothing other than I'm doing. We're doing live streams right now. This is what I'm moved to do. This is what the Spirit is moving me to do. We'll do short content because that is what the algorithm picks up, and that helps get this out to more people. That's what we're doing right now. Is that going to change in 6 months? Probably. But I want to be flexible, and I want to be creative, and I want to be open to new things so I can adapt and move, and I can also enjoy what I'm doing, and my passion comes through. I'm passionate right now. Can you feel it? Can you feel the sincerity, the honesty that I'm sharing with you? Am I wrong? Do I have the right doctrines? Am I saying and doing everything right? I don't know. Probably not, but I'm saying what I know to be true right now. And that's all that I can do. It's frustrating, but that's the way that it is. We have a new member, Jacob Tui. Shout out to you, Jacob. Thank you for your support. And DJINHAK, Haku. Well, I don't know why I'm spelling that out. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you to you, and thank you for supporting it. You are greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. New member, Chase Cormick. Shout out to you. Enjoy your new member's badge. If you want to see who the elite members are and what you have to aspire to, the elite members have got 2 new members badges I made for them, and it was their ideas. I have a small brain trust that I have nicknamed against their will, the middlemen. And they work behind the scenes to make all this possible. And they chose these member badges for you. So if you want to see who the elite are, who have been with us for 3 and 4 years, they have the single lantern and the double lantern. So shout out to the middlemen and the elite members. We have a super chat from Mr. Andrew Rouse. Rouse like house, I'll never forget that. Thank you for that little memory tool. Who writes, not sure if you have spoken of this, but from when you left the community you grew up in, did you ever lose faith for any time? You know, I didn't have faith when I was there, nor did very few people. My granddad did. My granddad was a strong man of faith, and there were a few of the older generation that were, but it was just a cult that was ruled by fear. There was really no teaching. There was no teaching of the Bible in my home growing up. Religion was to be a private matter and not something to be talked about. And, you know, really what started the whole thing unraveling is when I was about 18 or so, I started feeling called a little bit. I'm like, well, I'm in this church and we're set aside and, you know, we meet for church twice a day. Maybe I should read about this. So I started getting into reading and searching the scriptures myself. Well, obviously, I started seeing problems with the way the church was being organized and how closed off it was. And I started reading, well, aren't we supposed to let our light shine? Aren't we supposed to spread the gospel to save lost sinners and bring them to Christ? Why have you locked the doors and they wouldn't even let anyone join? Like if anyone ever tried to come in, I watched people that tried to come in and they were escorted out, even carried out. And I was told one time that when they were carried out that the men abused them, was like pinching and trying to hurt them and throw them out. You couldn't come in. You couldn't come in off the street. This was a church of God. Well, that didn't jive when I started reading for myself, and I didn't, again, start reading until I was 18, 19. Went to some of the elders, asked them to clarify this. They immediately got defensive and got mad and started becoming defensive. That was it for me. I'm like, this is BS. Well, once, that was one thing, but once I left, I had been, I just didn't know, I was starting to read a little bit. I saw that I think I was probably already on my way out and looking for an excuse, and the scriptures gave it to me when I went in there and I found that they weren't in harmony with the way that the church was acting. So when I left, we had been so controlled, no drinking, no doing this, and all of that. I was on my own, and I just went completely off the rails. I believed at the time, and I thought, well, that's God's people, and they told us if we ever leave, we were condemned to hell. And I said to myself, well, I might as well enjoy it. So I tasted and enjoyed everything that the world had to offer, everything, and that's what I did for a decade and a half. And right before I met Mrs. W, God started to call me out of the world. I didn't know anything. I hadn't lived it. I was completely secular. I never disbelieved, but I just figured I was lost, and I might as well take advantage of it. If you're going to be bad, you might as well be bad as you can, right? And that's what I did. And then fortunately, God didn't give up on me, called me out. A nice old lady, I'll tell you how it started. A nice old lady. It's an incredible story. I had an apartment. I had just moved back from Colorado. I was working out there as a wildland firefighter and a paid structural firefighter. Hated it. Hated the structural side of it, and something happened that rubbed me the wrong way, and I just quit my cushy career firefighter job that people would give an arm for, right? Just quit. Drove home. Got an apartment in the Hollywood district in Portland, and was living there. And right after I moved in there, I noticed that someone had slid a flyer under my door. And I walked over there and I picked it up, and it was a flyer for an evangelistical series at an Adventist church, and it had all this end of time graphics on it, like fighter jets and prophecy and doom and gloom and revelation and all this stuff. It was very sensational. And I looked at that and I thought, well, that looks interesting. But the thought of going to a church, I was in the bars. I was a Chad. I was out. That's what I did. My whole motivation was the bar scene and everything that goes along with that, right? So I saw that, and for some reason I thought, that's interesting, and it dawned on me, maybe I'll actually go to that. Well, of course I didn't. There was a wastebasket next to the door, and I never thought about it again. Just not even a second thought. My life went on. I don't know, it was probably close to a year later, maybe 8 months, whatever, another flyer under the door. I was on my way to go meet with some buddies at a bar, to go drinking. And there's that flyer. Picked up, looked at, same thing, apocalyptic imagery. I think it was a year later, because after I found out that the local church was it was an old church, a lot of old folks there, and a real diverse crowd. There were Samoans there. There was a big Hispanic community. It was a really, really diverse crowd of really solid, traditional Bible-believing people of the book with real strong foundations in the Bible. And they did annual evangelistic series there where they would have a guest speaker in. And I was not Christian, not involved in any of this. I looked at that thing a second time and it dawned on me, I'm like, I remember a year ago there was one of those things. And I looked at it and it was just so happening that it was starting in about a half hour. And for some unknown reason, I still don't know to this day, I decided to go. I hadn't set foot in a church. I thought that they were all heretics, because I had grown in that cult. I hadn't been in a church since my family church, and I figured I'd never go back in one. I was scared, man. I picked up this thing, and I had just started dating Mrs. W. We had just met, like maybe been out just a couple times. We'd actually just started dating, exclusive to each other. So I showed up to this big old inner city church, and I sat in the very back, and I thought, I got to make myself as small as possible. Hopefully nobody comes up and talks to me, right? Well, it started, and I started hearing the gospel being preached, the real gospel. And you know truth when you hear it. And I couldn't believe it. How is it I didn't know this? How is it that my parents didn't teach me? How is it that I'd never heard these things before? Well, it was every night. Well, this put me in a predicament because after the first night, I was so hungry for that. I'm like, I have never heard this before. I need to know more about this. This is incredible. So I went the next night, and I went the next night. Well, Mrs. W, we were just dating, and she was wanting to go out and do stuff, and I was kind of blowing her off. I'd say, I can't do it tonight because I'm doing this thing. She was starting to get suspicious. She didn't know me very well, and she wanted to know where I was going. I was telling her that I was going to some lectures. Well, she says, she likes to do everything. I like lectures. And I said, you wouldn't like these because I was embarrassed that I was going there. I wouldn't have told a soul that I was going to this thing. I thought that would have been embarrassing for my friends to find out that I was going to a church, right? Well, it got to the point where I realized that she was getting suspicious and she didn't know what was going on, and it was looking kind of shady. And I had to tell her. I said, and I didn't know her very well. It was hard to do, and I said, yeah, there's this thing at this church, and evangelistical thing, and she grew up as a Catholic, but had non-practicing really, not really serious, but had grown up that way. And to my surprise, she said, "Well, that sounds interesting. Can I come?" All right. So she started coming with me. So as she came, I became more and more interested and started moving. It was a huge auditorium. It was built back in the glory days of the church when people actually went to church. Probably built in the 50s or something like that. So it was massive. Probably seat 400 or 500 people with a balcony. Maybe more, maybe 800 people. It was big. Not a lot of people there now or then, but a few. I found myself moving further and closer up, and Mrs. W was with me, and we were going every single night. And this went on for like 2 weeks, I think, every single night. And we're getting closer to the front, and then they were just the sweetest people there, just the nicest people I ever met. And there was a family from Africa. I remember the Sikhi family. They were right over from Africa, and they had 2 or 3 just lovely little girls. And they were the sweetest. The first time I'd ever met African people. They were some of the sweetest, most beautiful people I ever met. Just so kind. And they would come and talk to us, and we got to know their girls a little bit, and we really enjoyed them. And then other members came, and it was just, I'd never experienced people that actually loved you and didn't have an agenda or were trying to frighten you or control you like my other church. And that was very nice. And Mrs. W was enjoying it, and we were just very much enjoying it. Well, at the very end of it, I'll never forget it. The preacher, he did a call. I don't know a call. What do you call it? When you call people up, who is willing to come up and to publicly profess that they want to become a Christian, that they want to follow Christ, and make a commitment to be baptized. that was a bridge way too far for me. And especially with my new girlfriend right there. There was no way in hell I was going to be getting up in front of those people. I mean, I'd moved up closer to the front, but I wasn't going to be getting up there for no baptism. I assure you of that. Well, people started coming up, and I was sitting there, and I began to feel kind of uncomfortable and more uncomfortable. What in the world's going on? And I felt my hair felt like it was on fire. And I was squirming and like, damn, like what the hell is going on? And I still to this day don't know how it happened, but it must have been God reached down and picked me up and put me out in the, before I knew it, I was out and walking up front there, and I couldn't believe it. He literally, I can't say that I made the decision, but I had no other choice. I was so compelled to do it. My head was on fire, like a hand was on my head. Picked me up, and before I knew it, I was standing up there professing my faith publicly in front of a bunch of strangers in line to be baptized. I don't know. That's how it happened. Come to find out afterwards, that Sikhi family, that beautiful family and those little girls were about 10 rows back on their knees praying earnestly for me personally that I would accept the gospel. And I will, I'll be eternally indebted to that family. I think that their prayers and the prayers of that beautiful family was instrumental. It probably was everything. Incredible. Goodness. We have a super chat from Chase Cormick and new member. Shout out to you, Chase. And Chase writes, "Hey, Cody, I've been watching you since I was about 15 or 16. I'm 24 now, and you've been a great mentor to me. Thank you." Thank you, Chase. It's encouraging. It's encouraging for us that are older to see young people that are getting it and that are, man, I envy you. I don't envy the young. Wouldn't trade places with anyone. It's nice to be young and to have everything that comes with that, but there's great blessings with having the wisdom that comes with age and where I'm at now too. I very much, you need to have both. It is, both are good, but it is good to be 16, especially if you're here on the right track. And what you're able to overcome, if you can stay connected to Christ, is even more difficult than what I had to accomplish in my day. Christianity was not near as frowned upon and attacked as it is now, but God will help you. Oh, thank you for your generosity. Neil Finity says, "I noticed," super chat, shout out to you, who writes, "I noticed you buy mostly Snap-on tools. What is the reason behind that?" I buy them because they're the best. And I have an affinity to them because I grew up using them. My grandfather was a mechanic. He worked for Ford. He only worked for two companies. When he got out of the war in 1945 or 46, he went to work for a Ford garage, a Ford dealership in Oregon, and he worked there as a mechanic. And he would have worked there forever, but he had his big thing was to go elk hunting, and this would have been sometime like in the probably like the 70s or so. He'd worked there for like 20, 25 years, and just the best mechanic, solid, a dream employee. Well, they had a service manager there, and you know who a service manager is, the guy that can't be a mechanic. That's what he always said anyway. He'd put in for vacation to go elk hunting, and he'd put in a year in advance. He always did it. And it was the Friday he was to leave for elk hunting, and the service manager strolled in, a young guy, and said, Chet, sorry, you're just not going to be able to go this year. We're going to need you. We've got too much work to do. You're going to have to stay here. And this was not at the end of the day. I think this was in the morning. I never heard my granddad ever say a bad word about anyone. And he didn't say a bad word about the service manager. He just told me what had happened. But I can read between the lines from the way he held his face and the way he told the story. He told me, he said, "I worked the rest of the day. At the end of the day, I backed my car in." He had a 63 Galaxy 500 four-door. "I backed my car in, I loaded my toolbox, and I quit. and I went hunting. Went hunting for 2 weeks, came back, went to a Ford dealership, and got hired and worked for them for the rest of his life until the early 80s. Worked for 2 companies. Didn't say anything to the service manager, didn't say anything to anyone. Just put his toolbox in the back of his truck, quit, and went elk hunting. That's a Chad move right there, huh? And Granddad, he was a legend. He was a legend. We have a super chat from Reverend Brummel, or remember, I'm getting silly here. Shout out to you, a new member. Shout out to you, Reverend. In a super chat also, he says, I just bought a Grand Forest Brook small forest axe to see if my PayPal is working. Well, I wanted one for some time now. Quick question about Wim Hof method. Do you do breathing first or shower first? So I do the breathing first now. I did it when I first started. I didn't know better, and I did the shower first, and then I did the breathing because I hadn't signed up for his class. I just went and opened up a couple of his YouTube videos, and I just play them and just follow along. Now, I do about 40 minutes in the morning I'm in week 1. Today is actually the last day of week 1, and week 2 is unlocked. I don't know what I'm going to do for week 2, but it'll open up tomorrow, and I'm just following it, just step by step. So I'm doing that. And I also, it's very simple, but it's super effective. I've went to the chiropractor for years. I've had back problems from all the years of sitting in heavy equipment. You know, the pounding, it's real hard on your spine. And when you're in a seated position, the impact on your spine is much greater than if you're more in a supine or a relaxed position. That's why the chair that I sit in now, you know, in the living room where I do my editing is very relaxed with my feet up because it's a lot better on your back. So what I do is I do that. It was $90 for the 10-week program. I signed up for that. Mrs. W took her first cold shower today. It was pretty funny. But so I do that first. So I found that to be quite easy. I'm strong and athletic, and that that is kind of set up for someone that's starting. You know, you might be starting at, maybe you're a little overweight or you're older. You know, it's approachable for everyone. So I get that. So I've went on and I've added on a couple things from his app. So I've added on some extra stretching exercises, push-ups, exercises that he does, and I do some pretty hardcore on my own. I do like 10 minutes of squats, just with body weight squats. So that whole thing takes me about an hour. So I do that routine, and then I go into the shower, 3 minutes of cold shower, all over head and everything, and then I start my day. And usually that's about an hour before I start the live stream, and then I have so much energy and I'm able to think quicker. It's incredible. It's incredible. I can't wait for the 10 weeks. I'm already getting stronger. My sense of smell is twice as good. My sense of taste, food tastes amazing. My ability to concentrate and focus, like on the example of the video game I gave, is enhanced. It's great. It is super, super great. I'm a huge fan. I don't know if Overton, bless him, did something that I hope could do. Mrs. W asked me about a year ago. We were just having a conversation. She's like, is there anyone you'd like to meet? If you could meet anyone in the world, who would that be? And I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And I said, no. I can't think, like, to go to the effort of doing it. No, there isn't anyone that I would like really desire. There might be, that might be kind of interesting, or I would like to see an old friend or something, but like to have a real passion to meet. Is there anyone like that? And I thought about it for a long time, and nothing came to mind. I would have said it if there was. There just wasn't anything. I have never been one to idolize people. Like it mystifies me why a grown man would wear another man's, like a football jersey with another man's name on it. I never idolized people that way. I would like to meet Wim Hof if I have the opportunity. Overton, he sent me a message yesterday, and said, I took it upon myself to reach out to Wim's, he found a contact or something like that. There was a media contact or whatever, about maybe having a collaboration or something. And I hadn't asked him to do that, but I'm glad that he did, because I thought, if she were to ask me to, I actually told her today, I said, remember when you asked me, it was last night, remember when you asked me that question? I said that I would like to meet him. I would just like to say thank you. I'm not going to idolize him and everything, but I'd just like to say thank you for turning me on to this and do something that's been so beneficial to me, and I think is going to just pay dividends that I can't even understand. And how cool would it be to, what could you learn from someone like that? I mean, he holds 26 world records, has changed the way science looks at what the human body, what the capabilities of the human body is. It's one of those 1 in 1,000 year type of discoveries. It could turn out to be that. I mean, it's monumental. And you're asking, why don't we hear about it then? How come it's not in the mainstream media? How come everyone's not enjoying the benefits of this? Well, do you think the pharmaceutical companies, do you think that the for-profit hospitals, do you think that is something that they would push out there, that would be a benefit to them? They are in the money-making business, and there is no money in cold showers. That's something we can all do. The medical establishment, by and large, there are good, great doctors and nurses in it. Don't get me wrong. One of my best friends is in it. They're great people, some of the best. But there's a lot of bad people in there too. There are a lot of people that are profiting off your misery. And I wonder if medication is, that's not always the solution. Sometimes we can find solutions that are cheaper and better and without side effects. We have a super chat from JN. Thank you, JN. And new member, Colonel Leo. Shout out to you, Colonel. Say hello to General Sam for me. We have a super chat from Chandler Stone. Chandler writes, can you tell us about your health journey? What did you do to lose the weight? Healthy habits, love the channel, watch you. So I lost, since COVID, I've lost, I have to do math here, 45 pounds. Got up to 225. I'm 6'4", but I have a thin frame. I'm not skinny, athletic thin frame. I have 44-inch shoulders and a 32-inch waist. So that's another reason why I have I can't wear normal clothes, because to get something to fit my shoulders in, it's made for a bigger man and the waist's huge, and they got mass, it just doesn't fit me well. So anyway, it doesn't matter. So I pushed up to 220, 224, 225, but that was not muscle. I remember I knew I had to do something when I was in my truck, and I had the airbags had 100 pounds of pressure in the rear airbags, because I run those when I pull my trailer, and I forgot to let them down, and it's pretty stiff in the rear. And I felt like I had boobs jiggling. I'd never experienced that before, someone that's always been athletic and reasonably fit and trim. I was horrified by that. I was absolutely horrified. And I looked at myself in a shirt. It was disgusting. It was disgusting. So I am, I told you I have a real problem with vanity, right? Well, just sheer determination and vanity alone got me thin. Nothing more than that. So I just quit eating. I just I don't want to weigh this much. I don't want to be this heavy. I don't feel good. Makes my knees hurt. Makes my back hurt. I've just felt myself. I'm at a crossroad here. I'm 50, 53, 52, 53. I'm either gonna just get old and just be a mean old fat bastard, or give up all the things that I've enjoyed doing, being athletic, and then I thought, I've got a 5-year-old daughter. I have an obligation. I can't do that. It may have been different. Jack is now 17. He'll be out of the house soon. I have to be there for my daughter. I have to be there for my wife. It's not fair. If you're going to enter into a contract with someone, a marriage contract, you come a certain way, you have an obligation to stay that way. Just because you're married doesn't mean you can just let yourself go to pot. I mean, that's unfair to the other person. You need to take care of yourself. I would say a man would be justified if your wife gains 100 pounds, 200 pounds, whatever, and is doing nothing about it and has no intention of doing it. You would be you would be justified to leave that woman, or the woman the man. That goes two ways. That's 50-50. Now, if they come to you and say, yeah, I'm not saying you just leave right away, but if you come to them and say, this is a problem. This is not what I married. This is not what I signed up for. There's going to be health issues I have to deal with now. It's going to diminish our quality of life. That is a breach of contract. So, I felt that as well. So there were many different things. And so I just decided to do it. And, the way I've always done it is I'm going to do something, I'm just going to grit it out and get it over with, get it done. I don't string things along. I went whole days without eating. I quit eating ice cream and stuff at night. Quitting alcohol was a big one. That helped out. And just ate less, and sometimes once a time, and yeah, I suffered. It was horrible, but so be it. But now I'm down to a 32-inch waist. I'm down to the size I was at when I was 21, and I'm stronger now, and just as good, if not better, in many ways. For that reason. And I was not that when I was at 225. I was like a Jabba the Hutt, like a walrus. I was like a homesteading walrus. Shout out to you, Spartan 219. Welcome, new member as well. Rugged West member for 4 years. Shout out to you. Thank you for the super chat. And JN writes, I recently split 16 cords of oak using 2 council tool mauls. Right there from the horse's mouth. JN split 16 cords of wood. 16 cords of wood. You know how much wood that is? If it's a true cord, that's a 4 foot by 4 foot wide by 4 foot high by 8 feet long, tightly stacked. People think a cord is throwing a loose pile in the back of a pickup, and that's not a cord. That's about half a cord. A true cord is a lot of wood. With council tools, yeah. And if he said that the head loosened and one of the handles shattered, I rehandled them and kept going. Yeah, nothing's perfect, and I don't know everything, but I do know that I have never seen one with a loose handle, but they were also with the fire department. We certainly weren't splitting 16 cords of wood. But they're a good tool, very good tool. Man, you must be fit as a fiddle. With 16 cords of wood, that's a man's work right there. Shout out to you. And Jason Barr, welcome Jason, shout out to you. Audio went crackly for a minute. It's fine now. Might want to check the batteries. Let me put on my specs. Okay, batteries. I took batteries out of the equation, Jason. I put cords, hardwired cords, into the 2 lav mics. That's been happening. It drops a little bit. It might have something to do with being inside the metal building. I don't know. I have noticed that when I was editing, that I've had a couple dropouts. It's rare, but it will happen. But we'll keep an eye on that. I've got backups. If one of these start acting up, we'll swap it out for another one. Just I'll see it in the edit too, and let me know, please. But thank you, Jason, for that heads up. We have a super chat from. Take me specs off here. Nilfinity. Shout out to you, Nilfinity. Thank you for your generosity. He writes, should I sit down with my family business members and talk with them, or should I move on? There is blame on both sides, but I am burned out and can't find the energy to care anymore. Nilfinity, if you can email me, Cody@Wranglerstar.com. If you can give me the details on this. I fear that you have maybe mentioned this in the past and I'm not recollecting that or pulling that up. Give me an email. I can advise you for what it's worth. Dealing with family businesses are very, very tough. Jesus summed it all up. He said a prophet is not without honor except for in his own land or in his own home. What that means is that it's difficult for family members to see you in any other way than they've always seen you, especially if you want to crawl out of the muck. You've found something, or you want to break family curses, or the way things have been done that are not right. People hate change, and family members rarely respect other family members. They always see you as the little kid, and they can never really respect you. I read a saying one time that the crown fits poorly acquaintances or those that we know. Meaning that if you are a group of guys, let's say there's a group of guys that come up in a regiment, and one of them rises up and decides to become king back in the old days. All of those men that he drank with, that he partied with, that he had shared crass jokes with, they'll never really see him as a royal king. They knew who he was and what's behind him. That's why it was so common in those days that if you did become king, even if those royal men that helped push you up there to that position, sometimes the wisest thing to do would be to baptize them and get rid of them, because they would never respect you. They would see you as novel and would most likely out of envy and jealousy do everything they could do to tear you down. And it was a sad truth, but when you're the king, you have to make hard decisions. You have to make decisions that we have a super chat from Joe C. Shout out to you, Joe C. 3-year member. Congratulations. Any thoughts on the new 8-bit? I, of course, will follow all along. Every man needs to do what he needs to do. Thank you, Joe C. We have a super chat from Derek. Shout out to you, Derek. And Derek writes, what do you read? What do you do about just don't actually care about anything anymore? You know, I felt, that's the way I felt, not very long, towards the end of summer. I was about to take the black pill. I thought everything was hopeless. I was even thinking, why am I even here? And I don't know where I would have been had I not had a man on me. I'm not going to say I've been in a dark place. I've been in a dark place before. I get that. I have obligations. I guess where that was taking me, where I was getting to the point where, I'm not going to look at anything. I'm going to fight on my own, focus on my immediate circle, and anyone else that wants anything from me or demands anything from me, I don't care. I'm over it. I'm tired of fighting. I'm depressed about the future of the country, etc. I don't feel that way anymore. The decision that I made was I had been playing around with God for so long, in and out, going like over the roller coaster, never knowing, am I saved, am I not saved? I hope Jesus comes when I'm, hope he comes when I'm in one of those, the high troughs, when I'm feeling it, and I'm reading the Bible and doing the feeling it by my actions. And then I had problems and I would question my faith and I think God was unjust and what's the point of all this? Never have this. I decided, okay, this is the last time. One more chance. Got down on my knees. Worse for me because I had experienced the joy of being connected with God, and what it's like to walk with Him, the peace that defies all understanding, the joy that comes from that. I've experienced that, and I've tasted it. And to taste that, and then to leave it, is so much worse. The Bible talks about that and says it's like the dog that returns to its vomit. That's the analogy that he gives of a man that has tasted the goodness, has walked and felt the presence, the goodness, the peace that comes from God, the peace that defies all understanding, and then turns away back to the things of the world. He equates that to the dog that returns to its vomit. And I knew that. I'm going to give it one more chance. Got serious about confession, got serious about prayer, got serious, turned away. There's a time, sometimes God will help you turn away from things. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be pornography. Put away the alcohol. Cleaned up my diet a little bit. Stopped eating food. You don't realize that your diet and the processed foods and the fast foods that you eat, that affects you, your mind. That affects your ability to connect with the Holy Spirit. I'm not saying stop eating food, but if you're connected to God, you can't help it but put it in. You make you aware of it. You just lose sleep. You just realize, you know what, this is having 3 beers at night. I'm doing that instead of spending time in prayer. I'm doing that instead of playing with my kids. All these things come into play. So the turning away. Repenting is a turning away. It's a turning away from things that you know are bad for you. I gave it one more shot. That made a difference. I was consistent with it. I really had to gut it out a couple times. I know we don't save ourselves, but sometimes you have to make a decision. But God will never allow you to be tempted more than you're able to resist. I must have repeated that 1,000,000 times. Hundreds of times, not thousands of times a day when I was suffering and being tempted by things from just appetite or lust or laziness or selfishness, wanting to do work on a motorcycle instead of playing with my daughter, or helping my son or talking to him. All those things. Reward the decisions that we make daily. All of them matter. And my faith started being built up. I started coming out of that funk. I felt the optimism. I felt the happiness. I felt the purpose, the life. And the capstone of the whole thing, the cherry on top, is the cold showers, the Wim Hof method. Just do it. What do you have to lose? Is your life so good right now? Are you enjoying things so much that you can't try something for 10 weeks, for 30 days? You can't go take a 3-minute cold shower. You can't do the Wim Hof breathing method. What do you have to lose? If your life sucks and you're depressed and there's no point of getting up and everything just looks gray and you're just dealing with that black dog of depression, if you want to continue in that, continue what you're doing. If you want to have some of this, then do what I'm doing. I didn't invent it. I'm just doing it. You can do it. I'm not doing anything you can't do. So when I became a man, I went by culture. When I was a child, I had to. I got it. Okay, that's it. What are we, 2 hours? Yeah, I could feel it getting tired. Thank you. But Derek, don't be discouraged. Be here for the live stream. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. I am being sharpened by other men in my community, by men online. I'm being sharpened by we're here for you as well. Be here. We're going to learn together. We're all marching to the kingdom together. And do I have all the truth? No, I'm not here to have the truth and you anyway. I'm here to point you to Christ. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ. It's not one better than the other. And Paul talks about the church being the body. We're the body here. And we're all on the same page. And when I'm having a bad day, I'm going to lean on these guys to lift me up. And when they're having a bad day, or you're being discouraged, maybe I can be here and be supportive and give you encouragement. That's why we're here. So don't hang in there. Just keep going. Just wake up and keep going. Clean your room. Keep your things organized. Keep your life organized. Get the chaos out of your life. Get away from people that are dragging you down. Be here. Be here at noon. And in 30 days, your life will be different. Thank you. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers. We'll see you tomorrow at